A group of camp counselors are stalked and murdered by an unknown assailant while trying to reopen a summer camp which was the site of a child's drowning and a grisly double murder years before. Join Final Girl Casey, Memphis Maniac Rick, the Godfather of Droll James, and me, Billy Graves, for Friday the 13th.
You're going to Camp Blood, ain't you?
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
They're going to come back again.
All out of bubblegum.
Start again first.
Replacement call. It's coming from inside the house.
Yo, 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 welcome to another Slashers and Screamers. We are a slasher sports production. Guys, you know we had to commemorate the holiday with the reason for the season, the original Friday the 13th, right?
Woo!
That's right.
Didn't catch
Man.
that cue. I didn't catch that cue. Yeah, I missed the cue.
I thought it was
It's
going to
a-
be a rhetorical sentence.
Nope, there's nothing rhetorical on this show, guys. There's no
Yeah,
rhetoric.
Memorial Day or something?
I thought we were meant to ponder. I thought we were
Well,
meant to
you know,
ponder.
we can ponder, but pondering doesn't really come across on a podcast because once I get that silence out, it's going to sound fantastic. Like we were in the middle of
Yeah.
the Gettysburg Address,
Yeah.
you know?
It's real formal.
Oh yeah, so like we also got to commemorate something else with our birthday boy that we're about to drag into this mess. So I don't want to, keep everybody waiting with any long introductions, but we've got a special guest this week to help us get through it all. He's from the city so nice they named it twice, New York City. The other name is Queens. A veteran of the stand-up game and a very good friend of ours, Mr. James Alexander. Welcome to the show, fam.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. You know, the last time we talked, I guess in person on Skype, was on the baseball podcast, and a lot of shit's happened between now and then. This is a whole different scenario, a whole different setup.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
So,
Well, this is the one that started it all for me. All right. Well, actually, it was part 2 specifically, but it was this franchise that sucked me into the the bloody genre of film, and like I've not been able to crawl back out of the hole. No matter how much I claw and scratch. But Alexander, I don't know if horror is your thing in general, but I know you're a fan of this film in particular, right?
Oh well, this is the thing, right? And I'm gonna just age myself, right? I'll be at midnight. I'll be 53 years old. Right?
Woo!
So that's how far back I go back. But when I watch it, I haven't seen this movie since 1983. Like that, I saw it. It was on regular TV, and when I watched it, it kind of reminded me of just what the time was. Like a lot of people don't remember. Like there was no cable, there were no VCRs, right? So if you were a little kid, you didn't see like R-rated horror movies.
Mm-mm.
There was no bloody video game. So something like Friday the 13th was like that was huge. Watching that many people get slashed and cut up, it was something that right now I think we've been desensitized because we've had access. But back then, Betsy I was 13. That was a brand new thing to see, and it scared the shit out of me. It scared the shit out of me. And when I watched it this time, I watched it on Sunday. And I was just laughing. I was laughing. It still got me a couple of times, but I was laughing I was like, this scared me. I couldn't even sleep. And my grandfather, he got mad at me because he said I was too big to be scared. Not that I was too old.
Too big.
Yeah. I was 12. I looked like I was 16, but I was still 12. I was like, I'm not an adult, granddaddy. But
They can't make me go to war this year.
Yeah. But
I can't even drive a car, but I'm too big to be scared. That's amazing.
Yeah,
was that your first experience with horror flicks?
Something like that, because remember, before then, I mean, all you would see is maybe an old Vincent Price movie, like at 2 a.m, or Frank. Like you really didn't like. There was like Texas Chainsaw Massacre was out, but nobody I knew had seen it. No other 12-year-olds. We just didn't have access. back then, like you really couldn't go see an R-rated movie. You know, there was always somebody who had like a cool older brother or a cousin or something that would take them, but I didn't have it. So yeah, that was the first time I had ever seen gore. Like that, you know, that's the whole thing. Like the movies I've seen, you know, it was always go to commercial right when they got, you know, it was spooky. Hitchcock was spooky. It wasn't gory. So yeah, that was the first time I had seen, you know, when I was watching the kills, I remember I was like, I forgot about the arrow through the neck.
For
like,
sure.
I forgot about all that shit. Yeah, it was at the time, I'd never seen anything like it.
Well, I wasn't allowed to watch, you know, the nudity, and I wasn't allowed to watch the killing. That's I guess what drug me into it though. Once my parents split out the house for date night, and I'm left with a sister who's only 6 years older than me. She don't want to mess with me. She wants to do her own thing. Well, when that VCR is vacant, I'm gonna go digging through them movies, you know, and I'm pushing, you know, the X-rated stuff out of the way because why do I need to see that? I want this thing that my parents told me not to watch specifically, and I need to look at the tape and see how far it is, see what the tape looks like. That way I know where to rewind it after I finish it, so the parents don't think I've been watching it, you know? So I guess
you treated it like porn.
I did treat it like porn.
Those are the porn rules. Those were the porn rules in the 80s. They're verbatim. That's exactly what you did. And you have to time everything out. Like, okay, we're going to be on 35 minutes. That means that we can't play around. We got to know exactly where we're going. We got to get to it. Yeah.
Well, you know, the kids are doing the same thing. It is sad. But, like, the kids today are doing the same thing.
Being a teenager is a sad time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you had nothing to do, man. And if you didn't have something to sneak and do, you weren't going to do anything. But, you know, the kids now they're erasing their browser history. That's their version of rewinding. Yeah. Rewind this cell phone back to where it was before I got on this page. So I guess I need to know the same thing from everybody else, though. I sincerely would like to know, like, when you all became fans of the genre. I guess we'll start with Rick. Rick, what was your first jump into horror?
I mean, I would say I remember seeing Psycho on TV when I was probably about 8 or 9 with my mom. And I got so scared at the ending, or the skeleton scene, I jumped behind a couch. It freaked me out so bad.
I believe that. When's the last time you jumped behind a couch?
Not since then.
Not since then? Okay.
Never.
Okay.
Never once.
Yeah. Never. Okay. Cool. Do you guys remember, I want to say it was a Vincent Price commercial, and it was some tile cleaning commercial where at the end of it, his eyes would glow like green. And like, there's no reason to be afraid of this commercial, but that was the thing that scared me more than probably any of these movies put together. If that commercial came on and I was at the babysitter's house and I came into the living room, I was, you know, about face and heading back out. I remember specifically, this was the thing that scared me the most as a kid. Vincent Price on a tile, like Tilex or Liquid Tile or some kind of commercial like that. But, Casey, same question.
Okay, so
Are you afraid of Vincent Price and Tilex? Just kidding. Your first experience in horror.
I am not scared of Vincent Price at all. But my first experience with horror that I remember is a remake of one of his movies. I was probably 6 or 7, and I was with my best friend at the time, and she put on House on Haunted Hill, the Jeffrey Rush, Famke Janssen version from the late 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And that spawned two things: a love of theme parks, because the opening is in a super creepy theme park, and also a love of horror. So that was my origin story, I guess.
I remember when that one came out, so...
It was around that time. We saw it pretty soon after, because I think her dad had rented it or something.
You know, that's one of the better remakes, though. Like,
I love that movie. We're definitely doing it on the podcast at some point.
Oh, for sure. The remake or the original. Don't care.
Yeah.
Love them both. JB, I know you're going to shit on the question somehow, but, like, was there something before your dad sat you down and forced you to watch Evil Dead?
What was the question?
God damn it, James. Your first experience watching horror flicks?
I was a young lad.
Oh.
Probably around 4 or 5. And I remember going with my dad to the movie store, and he would pick out horror movies to watch on the weekend. I had to be a man and watch them with him, Bill.
Be a man.
And every one of them happened in Bethpage, which is right down the road from where we live. So I was scared to death, and I hate watching scary movies to this day.
And that is why you're here.
On a lighter note, I remember this movie, Friday the 13th. The first time I saw it was over at your house.
You saw it at that was the first time you saw this?
You said, buddy, you got to watch this movie. And I watched it out of the side of my eyes because I hate watching scary movies.
Well, okay, Alexander, you aged yourself. I'm going to age mine. There was a restaurant back in like the late 80s that ended up turning into Ponderosa. It used to be called Bonanza, okay? It was one of those, I don't know, James, what would you call it? It was like a steakhouse, but it also had like the buffet, and it was most known for its buffet, almost like a Ryan's type of,
like a Golden Corral.
Exactly. Yeah, Alexander, just like a Sizzler or something. That buffet was, it was the shit. Well, at a certain age, they trusted me to stay home with, my sister, and I had to wait until they would go on date nights. And like, listen, my stepdad did not make a lot of money back then. He was a welder, and he was helping raise, 3 kids that were still in the house, and on like, $8 an hour, which in 1986 is not a lot of money at all. So they really cherished those date nights. I cherished the date nights because it meant they were getting out of the house and I was jumping into that closet. Okay. And like I said, man, I'm pushing girls of cell block F out of the way. Okay. I don't want to see Indiana Jones or Rambone. No. I want to see Friday the 13th, but it was actually part 2 that did it for me, like I said. But Alexander, another origin question, man. How'd you end up in the stand-up game?
Oh, it was one of those things where I started late. It was like I wanted to. I was like maybe 25, and I wanted to do it, but I didn't have the confidence.
Oh, your grandpa said you're too big to be scared.
I wanted to do it. Yeah, it's always been, But I would go to the clubs, and I would see. This was like Chappelle was coming up, Dane Cook was coming up, Bill Burr was. These guys were coming up, so you could see these guys on like a Monday or Tuesday. It wasn't like they weren't headliners yet, and I just remember thinking. I was just like, you know what? Like, I could do this. I couldn't do what they were doing. I was like, I can do something like this. But it took me a good 15 years to finally have the confidence. I think I turned 40, had one of those, like, okay, if you're not going to do it, then you're never going to do it. So that's one of those things. I went to an open mic, and I was like, if I get one laugh, I'll come back. And I got like 2 or 3 laughs, and I came back. And then after about a month in, I was like, okay, I was right. Like, you know what? I was kind of glad that I waited because I had my voice. It was like I knew who I was. But at 25, I was trying to be a rapper. I was trying to be like 8 different types of people. But by the time I was 40, I was like, I know who I am. And so yeah. So then once I started, man, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, all right, this works.
So was there somebody you tried to emulate early on, or did you just name those guys?
No. I would see them, and then later on, once they started getting famous, I was like. I remember seeing these guys, but that's when I realized that, you don't just start out being amazing. You start out by, you're working stuff out. Like, it wasn't like they were killing it. I was seeing them, they were funny, but it wasn't like the version that everybody knows now. So it let me know early, it's like, you know what, you're not going to be amazing 1 or 2 years in. It's going to be a while before you can go into a room and be like, all right, I'm going to kill this. And it takes a while, but it was good to see it because I saw them on the come up. So when I started, I wasn't in a big hurry. I knew that I was like, just keep working, keep getting more confident, keep trying to come up with original material, and just keep going. So it was one of those things where it's funny. The first 5 years, it's all fun because you can't believe you're doing it. That's it. You just can't believe it. You're finally on stage, and then from years 5 to 10 is when the business side comes in, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, I want to get this. I want to get in this festival. How did this person get on late night? And I didn't. I mean, once you start doing that, then you're just sabotaging yourself. So I've always tried to be like, I'm not competing against the comedy industry. I'm just competing against my last great set.
Yeah,
like that's how whatever. Every time I go up, it's like, okay, I'm competing against the last time I thought I really did well. That's how I just I don't look around and be like, I can't believe that Michael Che is on this next. He started like a year before I did. So I would see Che at all the little bar shows. I used to produce a bar show, and he would be on it. Jermaine Fowler would be on it. A lot of people that are on TV now, it was just coming up in the scene. Chris Stefano, Alex. There was just a lot of the New York comics. So once they started getting things, if you're jealous, then you're just gonna kill yourself. You're just gonna be in your own head, and you can't be funny if you're mad. I can't.
Well, I mean, I think you're the perfect guy to bring on as our first guest, man. And I think I speak for everybody when I say that we're really appreciative that you take the time to come out on our little, presentation here. So you're a real one, fam.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it, man. Like I said, when I did the baseball thing with you guys, I told you, I was like, whatever you need me, let me know. You know what I mean? I'll suit up because it's just, it's fun.
To this day, that's the most downloaded episode that I've had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what we can do with this one. That's good.
Well, the first one didn't do shit for me, so I guess this one's good.
Yeah. Well, you know what though? It's the same thing. You keep swinging. You keep talk about things that interest you, and there's an audience of people that feel the same way. Everybody has everybody who's into horror, or even if you're not into it, you still remember when you first saw that vivid horror experience. So that's good, and it was, and I'm glad I did this because I watched it on Sunday, and it was good because one, I got nostalgic, but two, I was laughing at some of the plot holes. I was like some of the plot holes. It was like, I know that we're jaded now and everybody thinks they can write or this and that, but some of this shit, I was laughing so I had to rewind it. Because once it's over, then you think back to the stuff that happened, and I was like, you know what? Here's what had me laughing the first, right? The killer. We all know who the killer is by the end of the movie, right?
Uh-huh.
The first 9 kills, quick and clean. Quick and clean, no hesitation, no starts, no stops. She got to that last chick, and she tried to kill her 17 goddamn times. And everything was clumsy, and she's throwing shit, she's getting knocked out. I was like, didn't you just throw a chick through a window? Like literally 10 minutes ago, I don't know how you did it. I don't know what kind of upper body strength you have, but you threw a dead body through a window to intimidate this chick. You hung a grown man upside down off a tree. You did all that. And then you got to this last one, this last little timid girl, and you had your hands full. And
she met her match.
I'm telling you, but it was like there was nothing to be seen. Like I could see if anybody else put up a fight, but no, all the other was 1, 2, 3. She got to that last. I don't know. Maybe she was tired. She got the old girl.
That's what it was. She was tired, man.
Girl. Yeah, she probably should have went to a diner and got some pancakes.
Well, with Steve and his 10-hour lunch.
Yeah.
Guys,
I was like, why in the hell is she having all these problems? And then even the survivor, she knocked this woman down 3 times and never finished her off.
She's not a killer.
Until the end. Then she finally had to get mad enough. That's what it took, though. It took almost getting killed 8 times to be like, this shit got.
And seeing all her friends disappear.
Yeah. She's like, okay, that tears it. Yeah,
Rick,
it was funny, man. I was laughing.
Rick, give us that rundown before we get into the granular details of this thing, man.
All right, man. So we did Friday 13th Part 1. It was directed by Sean S. Cunningham, who is from Alexander's hometown of New York City. He did a lot of other horror films. He helped collaborate on Last House on the Left with Wes Craven. He did the movie House. He did House 2, Second Story. Came out in May 9th, 1980. Some of the notable people, there's a lot, so I'm just going to cover kind of the main ones. Adrienne King was Alice. She's best known for Saturday Night Fever. She was in the movie Hair. She was in Friday the 13th Part 2. It's the sequel. Harry Crosby was Bill. Couldn't really find much on him. Says he's actually a former film and television actor on Wikipedia, and he's an American investment banker now. So I don't think he acts anymore.
He's Bing Crosby's
kid.
Yeah.
Oh well, I didn't know that.
That's about all. Yeah, that's about all I know about him.
Jeannie Taylor was Marcy. Says basically she's done like Broadway stuff and just kind of really minuscule roles. Laurie Bartram was Brenda. Couldn't really find a lot on her. She's best known as an American actress and ballet dancer. Kevin Bacon.
Seems that's the theme with this movie. A lot of people come from stage in this flick.
Kevin Bacon is a huge one. Man, he was in...
Also a ballet dancer.
Was this his first film, Billy?
I think it's like his fourth.
Animal House is his first movie.
Okay. He was in Footloose. He was in A Few Good Men, Apollo 13, Mystic River. He was in Crazy Stupid Love. He was in
every
Tremors.
movie known to man.
I could go Stir of Echoes, Wild Things.
There's a reason there's a game centered around this guy. Like, James Alexander is probably 5 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon, and I'm 7, so I don't qualify.
And then, that's Walt Gorney was known as Crazy Ralph, who was in Part 2 as well. And he was in New Blood, 1988, as the narrator. And then, of course, Betsy Palmer, Voorhees. She was really well known as a Broadway actress and television guest star as a panelist on the game show I've Got a Secret. And then she played his mom in Friday the 13th. And, of course, Jason was Ari Lehman. I don't really know what else he was in besides this movie. So.
I just now I have to picture Bing Crosby watching that movie. You know, one of the greatest actors of all time, sitting there, and his son looking at him like, "What do you think, Pop?" He's like, "Yeah, that's great, Bill. How about you be a banker? How about I think banking is for you, son." Yeah.
And what's fucked up is Bill was one of the better actors in this movie.
Yeah.
So that tells you the caliber.
Is when you told me that Crazy Ralph was in the second one, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, in the first one, Ralph was 100% accurate with what he warned them about, and they still called him crazy in the second one. He should have been like, "Oh, my name is Ralph, motherfuckers. My name is Ralph. No more Crazy Ralph."
Just plain Ralph.
Doom. I said leave or doom will befall you, and there you go. So how about you give me my flowers?
Is this a Mount Rushmore movie for horror?
No, only because to me, because it was you know what, it was a springboard, because you have to have the hockey mask. That's the Mount Rushmore. The first time you get the hockey mask. Part 2, if you're going to take a fight to a team, that's the one that created, you know, the Jason.
Mm-hmm.
So this one was a good story, and you needed that one. But you have to get to Jason. That's what established it. That's the legacy. You saw that hockey mask, and that's all you need to see, and you know everything about it.
I guess my question is this franchise a Mount Rushmore horror? The reason I ask this is because I'm kind of torn on it. I always think about, I think about this and then I contradict myself, but like it's a personal Mount Rushmore, I guess. But every time someone brings up the Mount Rushmore debate, I find myself saying Friday, Halloween, Nightmare, and Chainsaw. But you know what I'm doing there? I'm only putting movies in the slasher genre. It's not fair at all. Like, there's so many other subgenres to horror. Like last week we reviewed You're Next, which falls in the home invasion category. There's supernatural, such as, The Exorcist. You got the teen screams, like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. You got zombie flicks, all the Living Dead movies. So, knowing that, I can only put one slasher film or franchise on Mount Rushmore, and it has to be Halloween, because this one built off of the success of Halloween. And basically, this movie is what would happen if Halloween and the movie Meatballs had a baby. That's basically what it is.
That's pretty accurate. Yeah.
I mean, it's a very unlikely different film, but I mean, it makes sense to me. But Friday is quite clearly aimed at the younger crowd, or at least who would have been young in 1980. You've got the barely 20 years old actors. You got the sex scenes. You got the quick jump scares. It's all geared towards what we wanted to be: young and cool and good looking and not dead. Yeah. But what's funny about this is in 1980, 1981, Friday the 13th, the original, was nominated for the best film at Mistfest. Okay, this is a sci-fi horror type movie festival. 1981, which would have been the batch of movies that came out in 1980, it was a nominee for Worst Picture by the Razzie Award. So I just wonder, why is there such a polar opposite reaction to movies like this? Some people call it grotesque and poor taste, where others say, man, this is really the one. This is the fucking one that I love. Why is it like that?
Well, I just think it's a matter of taste. I think people that enjoy that genre will like the things that they're into it. So it's like any subgenre in music and film. Those fans are going to be hardcore. Now the so-called critics, the so-called elitists, the critics, they're going to be looking at, well, the cinematography sucked and the dialogue was stilted and this and that. They're picking it apart. Whereas somebody who's into it, it's almost like you, like Billy, you're a fan of wrestling, right? So somebody could give you 18 reasons why you shouldn't watch it, and you could give them 35 reasons why they should go to hell.
Well, I'll give them 35 reasons why they shouldn't watch it, because it is terrible. But man, it's my kind of terrible, you know.
That's how I look at something like this. It's your kind of it's your kind of scene. It's your kind of vibe.
And that's fair, because going back to this movie, just looking at the scenery from the movie, seeing the different cabins, the bathroom, the boathouse, like this is all scenery that was replicated for the video game that dropped in like 2018 or so. And I wear this game out to this day. And
it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic for fans of the movie. Other people like this one that's kind of similar called Dead by Daylight. I'm not a fan. But the Friday the 13th game, you got your little archetypes of counselors. You get to pick between like 8 different Jasons. You run around, repair vehicles, try to escape the map before Jason kills you all. It's great. And every map is from a movie. So the Crystal Lake map is from this movie specifically. And seeing them go into each cabin and, lay in the bed, which cabin this guy got killed in. You see the boathouse, you see the restroom where they were like washing their face or whatever. And it was just ridiculous to see that replicated in a video game. Well, hey, Rick, you remember the first time you played the game with me and that dude shot you in the gut?
Yeah.
So
dude, we had some good times on that, man.
So, Rick is playing this game with me for the first time. I talked him into buying it. It was like $30. It was, kind of cheap for a video game. I said, hey man, just stick with me and, I'll make sure that you don't get killed right off the bat, and we'll try to escape and you'll learn the ropes. And well, we go into a cabin like he and I kind of ran around a corner because I heard the music pop up. And when the music hits, Jason's after your ass. He's like in your vicinity, right? And so I duck up under a bed before Rick comes around the corner. He's like, where are you? Where are you? And this other dude comes in, and this is before they fix the team killing stuff. So like another counselor could just come up to you and like beat the shit out of you with a baseball bat, and you would die eventually. So like a bunch of trolls, would jump on and do that. Well, a dude comes into the door and Rick sees him. He's like, Billy, is that you? The guy pulls down his rifle and just blasts Rick in the chest. And I'm watching Rick from under the bed. And it's like, it's looking through a keyhole because it's like a little circle. And I just see Rick like laying dead looking at me like this. His face is turned towards me and I'm laughing my ass off. And poor Rick is like, what the fuck was that? Rick, I'll
like
never forget
scene.
that.
That's like a scene in a real movie.
It is.
Yeah.
There's your buddy. Yeah.
Self-preservation.
Yeah.
But, self-preservation is helping your guys get everything put together so you can, escape or whatever. But, man, poor Rick. I'll never forget that, though. But,
Man, that was, good time.
We got to do that soon, by the way. But, Friday the 13th, like so many others, has this cold open that it kind of opens the door and leaves all the questions that need answered. We've got 2 dead counselors before my popcorn even soaked up all the butter that I put on it, So controversial statement here, but I would have rather been those 2 kids getting murdered than have spent one more moment in that fucking sing-along.
Yes.
Yeah, I like how he was subtle. He was subtly giving her the minute this song is over eyes. He was just sitting there like, the very second, the second this song is over, it's me and you.
The last chord.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Last chord and...
Like, yeah.
Oh yeah, and we're going to Pound Town. But my favorite part of this open by a light year is in the moments that the killer's about to stab the girl. There's that slow motion shot with the the very familiar evil screeching violin. Like I don't know if it's the whole combination of it or specifically the slow motion, but I can tell you right now that the slow motion shot gives me like an extra evil feeling every time I watch it. There's something about that. Because it's not like your regular slow motion. It's not like watching, slowing down Usain Bolt while he crossed the finish line. This is a different kind of slow motion, almost like they took out a frame in between each one. And the slow motion makes it for me. Yeah. Did anybody else get that vibe?
Well, this is what, the girl that jumped out of the Jeep? Like the first
No, this is the one in the attic. The 2 kids that leave the little sing-along. And we weren't doing anything. Yeah, when she gets the girl, you've got that slow motion, that slow motion shot for me, that is a different thing altogether. Just a different eerie type feeling, you know. But, you know, everything about the early Friday films, especially 1 and 2, to me is just elite horror. You know, when you hear the Halloween theme, you know, everybody can pick it out. You play it at a haunted house and people of like all ages lose their shit. Like, I get that feeling about the music from these two films. Like, Part 3 had it as well, but 3 did get a little bit campy. There's nothing campy here. This is bad vibes all the way, and it remains that way, like, today as much as it ever did.
Yeah, every kid my age knew how to do that. Like, that was you just learned that. You just walk around behind somebody and they were like, stop it.
Billy, you don't think any of this is campy?
I don't know, because campy is, like, intentional humor, right?
Not necessarily.
James, did you go behind her and hit her with that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you know, that's my definition of camp. Like, I see, like, the original Batman TV series with Adam West. I see that as campy because it was intentional, but it was... you know, it was humorous. It was a serious subject matter, you know, fighting crime, but with all this very droll type humor. I don't see anything.
This one I didn't see. I think they were the first one. I think they were really trying to make a true horror movie. I don't think they were going for laughs. Even if there were laughs there, I don't think that it didn't seem like that was the intent.
Part 3 opens with campiness, with the guy eating the fish food and like picking the rabbit out of the lettuce section of his produce stand, and to me that's just a different level of campy. And I don't know, maybe I don't know the true definition of campy, but I didn't get that.
Like, I know that oftentimes it's for like a humorous effect, like exaggerated and stuff like that, but I think there are plenty of movies that were made with like clear intention of not being something silly to be made fun of that ended up that way just through generations.
But is that what camp? Is that the definition of camp, though?
I mean, words can take different effects over years, but what I'm saying is over the years, something that didn't used to be something like silly or made fun of can be now, and I think this movie is something that could fall in that line. Like, it's definitely exaggerated.
Okay, I'll go with that. And as we're talking about the movie, I'd like you to point out those parts.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'll
Crazy Ralph is everything.
Well, okay. I'll give you that. Even the guy
in the car who calls her a stupid kid like 47 times.
Well, if I was driving you to a camp where I knew you were going to meet your death, I'd call you a stupid kid too. Okay.
Well,
you call me a stupid kid anyway.
But here's the thing: like whatever happened 18 years earlier. So it wasn't like there was a bunch of murders. They really jumped onto that. Oh, it's gonna happen again. Yeah, the fact that it happened again, it proved them right. But they really, 18 years
they were really
is a long
banking
time.
On those murders.
It was almost like they needed that. Like I told them. Didn't we tell her? Didn't we
I've
tell
been telling every child for the past 14 years.
I was eating my pie. Yeah, there's like 14 years of kids saying that shit didn't happen when we were there. Like I don't know. It was like there were 2 murders, and then 1 year the water was bad. 2 years after that, and then nothing. And they were like, all right. But then so it'd have been funny to go to have a scene in the diner the next day. Everybody's sitting there like, I told the bitch. I told him. You saw it. You heard me. All right.
Well, once those credits are over, the opening credits are over, we meet Annie, a hitchhiking hammer. Oh, wait, did I say hammer? That's right, I did. And before I move on any further, I am presenting the Slashers and Screamers Hammer Award for episode 13 to the freckle-faced, immaculate curl-having, sweetheart of a gal, Annie, played by Robbie Morgan. Who says no?
I say no.
I mean, it's okay to be wrong.
Fervently.
I don't know what fervently means, but it's still wrong.
I insist that you're wrong.
You tell me somebody who deserves a Hammer Award more than Robbie Morgan, a.k.a. Annie.
A man that I am 4 degrees from. Kevin Bacon is the Hammer of this movie.
Oh, good Lord. Well, we're going to have to agree to disagree on this.
He looks great. He's coming up on Footloose fame, but he's not quite there. Hair's immaculate. So is hers. I agree.
Banging the ugliest chick at camp? That's got to count for something.
No, she was. No,
I gotta keep my hopes up, Billy.
She was kind of cute.
Listen, like you can have a 4th place team all with a winning record. Okay. Okay. You know what? Never mind. I don't want to.
But think about it, she was also most willing to get into the bunk bed.
Oh, okay.
If you look at it, because you look at the girl that played, the girl that said, "Hey, let's play strip Monopoly." She got down to bra and panties and talk about, "Oh, it's raining. I gotta
It's
leave."
time to go.
Like, what kind of shit is she started the game? As soon as it got interesting, I'm gonna get wet. I was like, oh, okay.
But
Didn't
also, how many hours do you think it took them to get down to bra and panties? I played Monopoly. That game goes on for days.
And most importantly, it doesn't happen until somebody lands on your hotel. This isn't just like
so you
currency.
have to get to a point to buy a hotel, right?
Exactly.
Like, that takes time.
Like, this movie was over the course of 3 years.
And then the survivor girl, she didn't lose any clothes. So it must have been in her contract or something. Like, she was just like, I'm not. Like, just take your top off. Everybody else said, she was like, no.
She might have lost her shoes. Yeah. She might have lost her shoes. We don't know. She was trading articles of clothing or something. I don't know what's going on.
I remember that. I was like, she's leaving? That's it? The game's over and everybody was just cool with that shit? And they had been smoking weed? I'd have been like, hold up.
She must have come in dressed like the kid from the Christmas Story movie.
Yeah. Layers on layers. That's it.
Well, Annie is hitchhiking her way to Camp Crystal Lake because apparently after the grisly double murder we witnessed in the cold open back in 58, they're going to reopen this thing. So in the history of movies, has there ever been a successful reopening of a camp after a murder spree?
How many murder spree camp movies are there?
Well, we've already done one, so...
Sleepaway Camp.
But that one didn't reopen, to our knowledge.
Was there not a Sleepaway Camp 2, 3, 4?
Yes,
there was.
I thought that took place somewhere else.
Well,
Did they
any movie where something bad happened is always, this was the murder house. Like, well, it won't be this time. Like anytime something bad happens somewhere, this movie theater, it was fine until the fire. And like, we're going to rebuild it because we believe in it. Like, anytime you set up that premise, it never ends well.
All right, I'll watch a movie, but leave the doors open.
Yeah.
Well, Annie doesn't want to listen, to the patrons in the diner. And if you don't want to listen to the patrons of the diner where Annie stopped, well, maybe you better listen to the creepy old man, best known as Crazy Ralph, when he says, "You'll never come back again." Like, I missed a trivia question surrounding Crazy Ralph on the night of the 13th. It was, how many characters returning from the first movie were killed in the second? I don't want to spoil anything for the people who've not seen the next movie over the last, 40 years, but I forgot about Ralph. So, spoiler alert, Ralph lives through this one.
And good for him. He desereds it.
Yeah, he was on point. But you know what I thought was funny about Crazy Ralph? Like, when he did show up at the camp, he did some crazy. He showed up to warn them, but he hid in the pantry. Like, that's some crazy shit.
The place they access once a day.
Yeah, he could have sat on the porch and be like, "Listen," and he's like, "No, I'm gonna wait until somebody needs some sort of dry goods, and then I'll let them know." Yeah,
he was probably in there from like the 10 p.m. the previous night. You don't know. He was in there a long time. He probably ate some of that food before he came out.
Yeah, he was like, I earned my crazy. Yeah.
Well,
you know what I didn't like about the beginning? The beginning when
that you didn't like?
You know what I did like?
Oh,
is how long you could just waste 5 minutes. They just showed her walking. She was just walking to the diner. I remember thinking, like, you could just do that back then. She's just walking, crossing the street. There was no, we had to show her journey with a big ass backpack. And she turns the corner, and I was like, she's still gonna walk? And she just walked all the way down the hill into the diner. I was like, yeah, you can do that. Back then, you had to set the scene.
Back then, first of all, you could do that. You could walk, and you could pick up hitchhikers back then.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here to tell you, my dad, my biological dad, would pick up hitchhikers like it was, I don't know, like they were Pokemon. He did not give a fuck. Like, we would go, okay, just to put in perspective, I'm on the state line of Tennessee and Kentucky, okay? And my dad was an older dad. So he was born in 1944. Now, we would go to these, like, bluegrass festivals to listen to music. It's what he wanted to do, wasn't what I wanted to do. It would be him and I, he and I, he and me. It would be. And we would see a hitchhiker with the big old pack on his back. He'd pull over on that shoulder of the road and he'd yell out, "Hey, friend, we're going up to a bluegrass singing if you want to hop in." That motherfucker stayed with us the whole day at this festival, ate dinner with us, and then my dad drove him even further north than we were going to let him out at a specific highway and then we turned around and drove like 3 hours back home. But it was safe to do back then. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe that's why it's in the state it is now. Maybe we thought it was safe then. People started getting killed, and now, it is what it is. But, moving along, we meet a character to whom all things in the cinematic universe can be connected in one way or another. Mr. Kevin Bacon, apparently, a hammerish type guy. He plays Jack. But with him is girlfriend Marcy, friend Ned. Now, they're all counselors, I guess. But, when they arrived at camp, apparently the guy chopping wood is a member of the Bloods, per the bandana tied around his neck. I don't know. But he's the guy with the cut-off jean shorts, made famous by Catherine Bach, a.k.a. Daisy Duke. And I'm not ashamed to say they look better on him. That's because he's he's a true blue killer. West Coast killer. Back to the introduction scenes, because that's really all these are. As soon as Daisy Duke's introduced, he introduces Alice, played by Adrienne King. I guess Daisy Duke and Alice have a story, a romantic past, if you will. So, that's sure to complicate things later on. Sure. Oh yeah, for sure.
He taking a shot. He took a shot. He took a shot. She was like, what is it? I'm not. She was like, I'm not there or something. And he was like, okay, but you could tell he'd been applying pressure. It was like, look, these shorts don't get much shorter. So.
Yeah, because he said like, what did he say? He was like, you're gonna come up next summer or whatever, I can get it fixed and all this stuff. And she was like, oh, I don't know, and I'm like,
yeah, he's trying to lay roots, man. He is trying to lay roots, but he's in charge of this camp. The head counselor. But if I was in charge of this camp, I'd make Annie the head counselor. You know what I mean? The head counselor. So let's take it back for a minute. Don't huff and puff at me, Casey. I know it was you.
Yeah, because you're gross.
You're
he's
gross.
From there, so he's from there. So for 18 years, he knew not to do that shit. Everybody that showed up there for work, he's from there. So year 16, he's like, I'm gonna open up that camp. They're like, don't do it. 17, don't do it. He's like, I got my money. I'm opening up the camp. And they were like, all right, motherfucker, all right, okay.
Because later on, Pamela Voorhees says Steve never should have reopened this place, but that's later on. But Steve don't listen. Steve don't know how to listen, apparently, because he's applying all that pressure on Alice. And maybe he dodged a bullet though.
No, he was like, I'm gonna get with Shorty, even if I gotta open up a whole camp. If that's what it takes, I'll reopen the camp.
Fuck them kids.
If she needs a job, I'll reopen the camp. Yeah, fuck them kids.
Well, take it back for a minute though. While the crew's all at camp setting up, Steve drives off in his Jeep. All right, I bring this up for a specific reason. All right, we got to look at this as if we're watching for the first time. And we also got to think as if we didn't see any other Friday movie before this one. Because that's not the case for me. I saw 2 first and then part 1. So I knew about Jason before anything else. But let's jump to the scene after Steve leaves the campground in his Jeep. Then moments later, a Jeep pulls up on my girl Annie and picks her up. We know what happens to Annie. She's chased into the woods, murdered. So was this supposed to be a red herring? Were we supposed to be misdirected into thinking that Steve was behind this?
Oh, I didn't think Steve was behind it.
Well, you didn't because you already knew. But if you're looking at it through fresh eyes, you see him leaving that Jeep, and then a Jeep pulls up on Annie. Same color.
I think I'm too stupid to connect that.
You know what?
That's fair, but I don't think so.
If I go back to 12-year-old me, I might have thought that because there was no Jason. There was no, I didn't know how it ended. Yeah, it was one of those things where I figured it would be somebody in the camp. That's what I figured it'd be somebody one of these people is the killer.
It's impossible to make that call though today because we all know who Jason is, and we I guess as a trivia question, we all know the mother was the killer in the first movie, but having seen it for the very first time and seeing him drive off in that Jeep, and then moments later that same Jeep, or at least the same model, the same type of vehicle, I don't know if it's the same model, I'm too stupid to recognize that, but seeing a Jeep pull up on Annie and then seeing what happens to her is like, that motherfucker Steve just killed Annie, so he's gonna go back and kill everybody else. And then he stays, conspicuously gone for so long as people are getting offed, But I don't know.
A long ass dinner, right? He was at that diner for a long ass time.
12 hours. It got dark. They got there early morning and it was dark.
And he just had coffee. She's like, that'll be $2.25. So he wasn't even buying shit. He was just sitting at the counter.
Well, back then, coffee was only a nickel. So he drank 2 gallons of coffee while he was
30
there.
cups of coffee.
Yeah. Well, it's R.I.P.
Can
Annie,
I tell you
though.
something about this movie, though?
Do it.
So you're telling me that, I should have made the connection and thought it was Steve. Like in
I
an ideal
definitely
world.
did not tell you should do anything.
In an ideal world, you're saying that someone who was going into the movie would think maybe that's Steve with the Jeep.
I believe my question was, were we supposed to be misdirected into thinking Steve was behind this? It was a question, and a fair one, I think.
So, I went into this movie knowing who did it.
Yes, that's why I prefaced with, let's say that you're seeing
when
this.
I was a kid.
Okay, that your age at the time doesn't change the preface.
I'm saying I knew who it was because Scream gave it away and I saw Scream first.
Oh, so you wanted to work your little Scream tidbit in there. That's really
No,
what this
I
is
was
about.
thinking because, like, I went into this movie knowing it was the mom, but I didn't know why. I mean, like, I knew that her kid died, but I didn't know all the stuff that was going to happen at the end, you know?
Her kid.
Well, I didn't
His
know
name
the
is
first
Jason.
time, and it was amazing.
Oh, my God.
Now, you know what? Now, here's what I wonder. Would the payoff been a little bit bigger if they would have introduced her earlier, not knowing who she was, like maybe if she's just one of the people in the diner or something, you know,
At least
one
give
of
her
the people.
something.
Yeah,
I think so.
So because she just shows up as the lady, and it was a nice twist when she turned that scene where you realize who she was. But like this, she was just thrown in the middle of it. Like just one scene, you know, as the hitchhiker comes up, and kind of bumps into her. Excuse me, it's okay, dear. Just a little something.
Yeah,
when you see her, you'd be like, oh, wait a minute, what's this?
It's like ordering some lemon pie or something.
Yeah,
No, I agree with that though, because the thing for this movie is I really enjoy this movie. I know, like Billy said earlier, that if you're making a Mount Rushmore of like slasher films, that this is of course going to be on there. But the thing that takes me out of this movie is you don't get any kind of, you get like a little bit of buildup, but barely. It's like you see someone kill two people at the very beginning of the movie, and in passing they mention that two teenagers died and a boy drowned. But you don't get any kind of follow-up to that part of the story until the very end. Like, we could have had an interaction, or someone could have mentioned that the mom went crazy, something.
But wouldn't that have spilled it, though?
I don't think
if somebody says the mom went crazy, like now, like it's in your head that the mom is, you know, crazy.
I think if you heard it from like Crazy Ralph or the guy driving, like the truck driver for the hitchhiker at the very beginning, I think if someone in that had just like passed that by in very casual conversation, I don't think you would really think about it until the very end when they show it again. Because
I think
really,
any
like,
mention of a crazy mom automatically tells you who's doing all.
I just
it would tell me.
I wish there was more lead up, I guess, in this movie. Like, if I'm looking at those four franchises, I really enjoy these movies. The second one is my favorite, and I think we've talked about that plenty. But in this one, I just wish there was something else leading up to it.
That's fair.
Yeah, just something. When she shows up, you're like, oh, she's gonna save her, or something where she's not established, but just seen. This scene at some point in the movie, and then when she turns, you're like, oh shit, no, she's not here to save him at all. She's actually crazy as shit. You know, that would like I said, it still worked because she did turn. That little fucking kid voice, that still got me. That got me 52 years old Sunday. When she did that little boy voice, I was like, I still got the chills. I was like, that's still fucking creepy. I couldn't lie. I was like, okay,
And you know, like 40 something plus years later, maybe what we're saying to criticize isn't really fair because it stayed with us. You know, I forgot everything that happened in My Bloody Valentine, but I've never forgotten Friday the 13th. So maybe they did do it right, and I should just shut the fuck up about it. Maybe. I don't know. But, you know, we jump forward to camp again. The crew's taking a swim break, and there's nothing really here to further the story, but there's another element here that I really like. And it's when we see the first-person point of view. You know, the hand kind of pushing down the tree branches to look at the swimmers. You know, we know it's the killer. We still don't know what he looks like. But we know it's him. You know, one of the girls in the water gets a scared look on her face because, you know, she sees somebody peeping at him from the woods. But when the camera cuts over the trees, you can't really tell if there's somebody there. So your eyes are scanning that TV screen and every shadow and every little space between the leaves. Because, you know he was there and you want to be the one who saw him before the end. Like, I found myself even, you know, now, yesterday, watching this movie, when I saw that shot of the trees, I'm looking like, all right, where's the motherfucker? I don't even see him standing there. So, like, how did she see him? And, like, still, having seen this movie 100 times, I'm still doing that. I think, you know, this movie really builds anticipation. Like, I mean, Hitchcock at his best. You know, I could liken the heightened tension to anything done by Hitchcock, or the attention to suspense. Agreed? Disagreed?
Well, no. I mean, Hitchcock was different because there wasn't really body counts.
I mean, just the building of suspense.
Like maybe one murder, yeah, but it was suspenseful. It's just like once they started falling like dominoes, though, you knew every time they showed somebody by themselves, they were next. Like that was the first couple. But next time, every time somebody's like, "Okay, I'll be right back," like, "No, you won't." See you guys tomorrow. No, you won't. Like, nope.
I'll be right back. No, you won't.
Yeah. She went to brush her teeth. I'm like, that was a mistake.
But you would have been judging her had she not brushed her teeth, James.
No, because I think it was the '80s and it was a camp. You kind of rough it. You rough it a little bit.
You do. Just go sit down in that mud puddle and splash around a little bit. You're clean.
Yeah. But
in my time, I've kind of grown soft. All right, and I don't know if I can consider it soft, but I'm talking about the scene with the snake.
You felt for the
sad.
snake?
Yeah. Well, the reason I feel for the snake is because it was a real snake, and they really killed it. Like, it's not a prop, and it would never fly in 2021. It wouldn't fly in 1991.
It's like you wonder what that snake would be doing today.
You wonder, like, who were his people? Like, how were they affected? But like watching all my life, I did think that this was probably a prop snake, and but no, I mean, like, Friday the 13th doesn't like hold back on any violence or bloodshed, but like most of the deaths in all the movies have been human. Like, but the death of the snake has kind of been debated for a long time, like whether it was real, whether it was a prop. And Kane Hodder, who was like, one of the more popular guys that played Jason in, I think, 6, 7, 8, and Jason Goes to Hell. Like, he went on record and said that, like, Jason harming animals and, at least while he was in the character, he didn't want it. Like, in one instance, he got, Jason, in part 8, Jason was going to kick a dog, and he said, no, Jason wouldn't do that. He only hurts human. But in the first film that we're watching here, I mean, the killer's not Jason, but, before any of the killings, aside from the two back in 58, got started, well, these fucking counselors just off with his head, and like, animal deaths in horror movies like are kind of taboo, wouldn't you say? Usually, I mean, Rick didn't even want to see a dog die in a fake way on a previous movie that we did. He was more satisfied with a 9-year-old kid laying dead in the corner.
I mean, I'm a huge, Billy knows this, and so does Casey. I'm a huge Halloween fan. I love those films, but in a couple of them, when Michael kills the dog, I hate it. Like, even though I know it's just a movie, I can't stand it. So,
are you choking up right now?
Yeah. What?
I said, are you choking
People
up
take
right
that
now?
really seriously, though. Like, I mean, it's taboo because anyone watching a movie that's had, like, a pet close to them, something like that, can imagine, like, oh,
hard.
that's my pet dying.
Casey, I have children.
No,
Do you think
that's... What I'm saying is...
It's not different.
Yeah, I think it is because more people have experienced the death of a pet than they have the death of a child.
Yeah, I've lost 2 dogs in 3 years.
So, like, having experienced it doesn't make it different than the possibility of seeing, like, someone's child die on TV when I have a child sitting next to me on the couch watching this movie with me.
Right,
what I said was relatable.
But we're...
The word I used was relatable.
Is the issue that you didn't want to see a snake's death in the movie, or the fact that they really killed the snake?
The fact that they really killed the snake.
If it was confirmed that it was a prop, would it bother you that they even had the scene?
Oh, absolutely not. Okay. Absolutely not. But the dog deaths don't bother me either on movie. I hope they come out with a movie where they only kill dogs.
Oh, hell no.
Well, but I mean, what you
going to happen for a second. We'll see. Oh, we're going to see about that.
But what you asked was, are they taboo? And I think the reason that people put those scenes in movies is because they know that it pulls at the heartstrings.
It does, but that doesn't
mean that
sometimes
it's fun to root for the killer, right? Because sometimes, I mean, in these movies, in any movies, when you're seeing a slasher movie, sometimes it's fun to root for the killer.
So, when a killer kills a 9-year-old kid, and then it kills a 4-year-old dog, if the line was that, oh, well, this one killed the dog, so I'm going to side with this one that only killed the kid, that's a little fucked up.
I'm just saying it's more relatable for people who have lost a dog. More people have lost dogs than people who have lost kids. So it's taboo in the way that it's more relatable for more people.
I'm sure it's more relatable.
I'm not saying a kid dying isn't sad. Of course it is. But I also don't think you see kids die as much in horror movies as you do adults.
Yeah. Stephen King will kill a kid in a minute. And everybody else is Stephen King will kill a toddler.
And then he will bring his ass back.
And he has.
Yeah. Stephen King, you know, that's why I love reading Stephen King. Because he was like, oh, anybody can get it. Don't think that anybody here can't get the business.
You know, listen, man. Stephen King been killing kids since before it was cool, man.
It's like don't get attached to a kid.
Has anybody heard of the film Cannibal Holocaust?
Heard of it, never seen
No.
it.
Seen it one time. That's it.
Okay.
I'll never see it again.
It sounds awful.
It's pretty terrible. It came out the same year as Friday the 13th, okay? And many actual animal deaths were shown on screen, including like an animal that's kind of almost like a muskrat. There was a turtle, a tarantula, a boa constrictor, a monkey, and a pig.
Where was that filmed? Was that filmed here?
No, the director's Italian. I know that. And he had to go to court because some people thought the deaths were so real with people. And he had to go to court to literally prove that, hey, this is fake and this is how we did this shot in the movie.
But the animal deaths were real.
Yes.
The animal deaths were very real. Now, PETA wasn't just like readily, available to jump up and, defend, these animal, rights. So, I mean, it just kind of flew. But like, they didn't have that type of shit on the set of Friday the 13th. Like this, death happened and it basically got swept up under the rug. This scene, is where Alice discovers a snake in, her cabin, calls her friends to help. Bing Crosby's kid runs in. He's got the machete, cuts the damn thing's head off. And,
like, it wasn't even integral to anything. Was it just one of those
nothing.
Things where, you know what? It's just in the script. So we'll just have this scene. Like, it didn't lead to anything. It didn't come up again. They just threw it in. It's like he wanted to kill a snake. He was listen, I'll make the movie, but I'm going to kill a snake. Well, what does it have to do with the story? Zero. Absolutely nothing.
If you want me in this movie, I'm killing a snake.
The
most innocent snake.
Keep your money. Let me kill a snake.
Well, you said that it doesn't add anything to the story. There's one thing, and I'm going to go back to my point with Steve, driving the Jeep. Once Bill, Bing Crosby's kid, cuts off the head of the snake, he kind of takes the machete and like puts it up on his shoulder, and he makes this like blank stare. He's carrying the machete around like he would a Louisville Slugger, and he has this really blank stare on his face. So one's got to wonder, does this make Bill out to be a possibility if we don't already know? Could you see that happening?
No, because wasn't he like the first one?
No. Bill was one of the last one. In fact, you don't even see Bill die in this one. He's the one that's hanging on the door and got the arrows stuck through him.
Oh, right. He was the guy playing this
he was playing strip poker, strip Monopoly. Right, exactly. But, when the police officer on his bike comes to warn the counselors of Crazy Ralph, it kind of casts an eerie shadow on him as well. So we got 3 prime candidates, and not only that, but he's just hanging out in the food pantry, like you said, and he scares Alice. The crew comes running in, but they didn't fucking chop his head off, now did they? Well, it's sundown on Camp Crystal Lake. Kevin Bacon's working on his night moves, much to Casey's enjoyment. But Ned's mad because he can't. Well, I'm just throwing it out there. I want facts out there on the table for everybody to make judgment on. But our boy Ned, who was driving the truck earlier with Jack and was it Marcy?
Yes.
Did I make up that name? Okay, yeah, Marcy. Well, Ned's mad because he can't have a menage a three with him. So he walks off on his own for the first time. I think we see an actual figure watching him from the front deck of a cabin. So it's a figure which Ned follows into the cabin. We just saw Ralph. He rode off on his bike. Is he public enemy number 1 at this point? We've disqualified Bill. Steve's elsewhere. Well, Steve could be back, I guess. So, I mean, nobody's disqualified for me at this point. My main guys, if I'm thinking logically, and I don't know anything, Steve, Ralph, and Bill.
Yeah, I don't, I'm trying to remember, like I said, it was, damn near 40 years ago. But I don't remember playing in my head, it might be one of these guys. I don't remember that. I don't remember doing
so
that.
Hard. It's so hard to play that game.
I think I was just taking it all in. I think I was just taking it all in. Because one, they were being watched when they were swimming, right? So almost everybody was there except Steve. But I don't remember playing the process of elimination. I don't. Like, if I think back on it, I didn't look for clues. I didn't think like maybe it was a truck driver in the beginning. But remember, like I said, this was before everybody had access to horror movies. So there wasn't rules. There wasn't if you see this is going to happen. This was brand new. So I think I just went in wide-eyed and was just watching everything happen.
Just what happens.
Yeah, I was 12. I wasn't that smart, to be honest. I wasn't one of those smart 12-year-olds you hear about.
I have heard about them.
Yeah, I was kind of goofy. Like, matter of fact, when the movie was over, my mom asked me to go out into a car to get her cigarettes. And I opened the door when they showed it Halloween night on NBC. So I opened the door, and just like in the movie, the wind is blowing through the trees, there's leaves rolling, and I thought, I lived in this small town in Texas at the time. I really thought that of all the places Jason could go, he would go to this little town in Texas to kill me that was 100 miles away from any fucking lake. So it was not even, so I just remember thinking, and it wasn't even Jason back then. I thought, now we saw the mother get her head cut off, but I was just like, I'm going to get killed. I'm going to reach, and I had the keys. It was like in the movies. I was fumbling. I couldn't get the key in. Like, I'm going to get killed. I'm going to get killed. And I grabbed the cigarettes, and I dropped them on the bottom of the car. It was just like, and I ran in, and I put my back against the door, and it was like, ooh, I made it. I remember that. So, yeah,
So it's not that unrealistic.
When you believe that evil is around you, your mind will tell you that it's happening.
Yeah,
so
we can't say shit about the people that like can't pick up the keys and start the car and unlock the door or lock the door. We can't say shit about them.
I think most people aren't. Most people don't know how to be chased well because you don't have any experience. Being chased is something that happens rarely. Like, if you're lucky, it never happens. But if somebody came in this apartment right now and started chasing me, I don't think I'd make all the smart decisions. Like, I know where all the weapons are if I could get to them, but I'm not ready for it. I'm here talking about horror movies. Somebody came in with an axe, I'd freak out and do something stupid.
Well, it gives me like great pleasure to be able to hide somewhere and jump out and scare somebody. And there's one person in present company that I've done that to, that I only did it to him, once or twice and learned my lesson. James, I just wonder if, or JB, I just wonder if you still got that gorilla suit.
No, it's gone.
Son of a bitch.
Oh, he got you back.
Well, he got me like in the moment. There wasn't even, we didn't have to wait to get me back. It was like in the moment. It's like bouncing off the ropes and you get caught in that spine buster. Like, I hid up under his bed with a gorilla mask on, and I seen his big old feet flopping through his bedroom. I stuck out and I said, ah, and man, I got nothing but heels in my head. He stomped me out, and yeah, never again. Unless I'm standing.
He wasn't playing that shit. He was like, okay, not today.
Nah, if I can't be standing up and stand behind something, I'm not gonna do it. So
James Brown shows no mercy.
He was like, today is not the day that a gorilla kills me from under my bed. Not today.
Well, see, his mom did it first, though. Like, we were asleep, and when you're little kids, you don't care if you're asleep in the same bed. Of course, we did it till we were 35. But the thing is, his mom sticks her head in the door with the mask on, and I'm looking over at James, and like, he hides up under the covers, like that's gonna help from a gorilla. And I turn and I look, and my heart just stopped. Like, it skipped like 3 or 4 beats. So I might have like what do you call like a heart murmur because of that moment. I don't even think it's a heart murmur. I'm pretending to know like medical terms.
Palpitation?
I don't know. I drank a palpitation earlier, and I still got some. But
originally,
there you go. Yeah, that all sounds correct to me. But right now we've got a crazed killer's delight. Like, 2 folks going to Pound Town over in one cabin, 1 dude alone in another cabin. You got 3 by the fireplace playing strip Monopoly. One of them's off campsite. Like, these guys are just asking to die. Okay, and I had subtitles on. And at one point I saw the word thunderclaps. And like, looking at that cantaloupe squeeze Marcy put on Kevin Bacon's ass, I don't think it was the thunderclapping, fam. I think it was Jack. It was Jack clapping Marcy,
Clapping them cheeks.
Well, once again, as predicted, they're dropping like flies, man. Marcy goes to pull all that bacon batter out of her fur coat. It's revealed that Ned was up on the bed. What?
That is horrible. I hate that.
Well, you know what? Bacon batter is better than bacon drippings.
It is. Listen, it was 1980. It was 1980. You know she had a fur coat. Well, it's revealed that Ned was getting that bird's eye view of that wrestling match they were having, but he did.
I was going to say, was he?
Here's my question. Did he just walk in there by himself and just lay in the top bunk? Or
he must have.
Or did he get killed? This superhuman woman killed him, and then who just goes and lays in the top bunk?
I do want to know the order of operations here, man. I do want to know the order of operations. Part of me thinks that because he was looking at him from afar and was kind of jealous, he was going to go and kind of hide on that top bunk and watch him get after him.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going with the creep factor. And then Killer comes in, takes care of him, leaves him dead.
That's the whole thing, though. So a woman walks in, and he just sits there like, hey, what's up? And she gets closer. He doesn't.
She was the first one in.
So she was no. So she knew, but see, she'd have to know that they were going to go there. How would she know that?
Well, she was
taking a sleep.
Well, she was following Ned. She was watching him from the front porch. If he didn't go in that cabin, she was just going to follow him even further, probably. But he came into the cabin. She posted up somewhere and probably got him. Fireman's carry, threw him up on top of the top bunk. I don't know.
You know what? Though? He might have dozed off. You know what? He might have dozed off. I'll give him. Maybe he laid in there to wait and dozed off. And he's like, oh, this is easy. This is easy.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But, Jack, he takes the dive next with what's probably the best visual kill in the movie. He's lying in bed, waiting for Marcy. He's smoking drugs, Casey. And before, there's a hand on his forehead holding him down and an arrow coming through his neck from the underside. Rick, how'd they do this kill? It seemed too real.
No, it seemed unreal. What's the logistics? How?
What are the logistics, right. Rick?
You're laying under a bed, and you reach up, and you how?
All right, so
Rick's got the info.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar might have done it because he had the 8-foot wingspan.
That's Roger Murdoch.
But how are you under the bed, up over the top, right here, and then you're still under the bed? You can't see, and you come right through the neck. That's for somebody who had never killed till that day. Pretty good.
We don't know that. We didn't see the practice runs.
Oh yeah, there might have been some practice runs.
No, they would have talked about it in the diner. And then in 1972.
True.
You remember what happened to Stacy? Like, oh yeah. And
so Rick, this was one of Tom Savini's better kills, Rick. So what did he do to put this thing together?
So it's actually pretty interesting, pretty complicated. So Kevin Bacon was lying on the bed, and from his chest up is a fake chest. It's made out of a mold. It's made out of it was some type of not plaster, but some type of rubbery material. Tom Savini has first he has sheep's blood, and then he has a syringe and apparatus with a pump on the end to pump that through the fake chest of Kevin Bacon when he gets the arrow pushed up through his neck. But what happened was, when Tom Savini was pumping it, the pump got stuck, and he had to literally blow with his mouth to force the sheep blood up through Kevin Bacon's neck, and that's why you see all that blood, because it got stuck, and Tom Savini had to blow with his mouth to make that happen.
You keep saying blow with his mouth.
Yeah, it was a tube. The fake blood was in a tube. He had to blow with...
What alternative does he have if he doesn't use his mouth?
Well, remember, in the 80s, sometimes you could ass blow or you could mouth blow. That was the 80s. So
okay, see, I was born in 82. Yeah, I was born in 82, so, ass blowing had already, phased out by the time I had learned about it.
Yeah,
so.
I think if you go back to, Boris Karloff,
he was an ass-blowing fool. Boris was an ass-blowing fool. Everybody knows that. The king of ass blow.
Yeah, no, that was a great kill. But I thought about it later on, like how in the hell? No, after you saw who it was, I was like, how did she do that? She just laid there.
Well, listen, man, she's kind of bulky, man. Like that upper body ain't all sweater, you know. She's gonna have a tough time with that. She ain't got those Chamberlain arms, those Dr. J
that
arms.
Was a good one. Because I had forgotten about it until I saw it. I was like, that was a good kill. That was.
Yeah, I mean, because Marcy gets the axe to the face next. And, you know, that one wasn't that bad. I think they use a styrofoam axe and put it on her real face as opposed to, you know, having a fake face with a real axe through it, you know. But if you're keeping count, like, that's Annie, a snake, Ned, Jack, and now Marcy. 5 of them dead. They're falling, you know, dropping like flies. And then Steve Christie, he's the head counselor. He's been off site. Bill's playing strip Monopoly. First timers couldn't possibly know the killer here. We've disqualified everybody that could be disqualified.
Yeah.
So it's not long before Steve is cleared, you know, because we find him at the diner on his 30th cup of coffee and like later stuck in the rain, you know, being picked up by an officer to be taken back to camp. Bill definitely didn't kill Ned. So, I mean, that doesn't leave Crazy Ralph. I don't know. We got no evidence against him. He's not driving a vehicle. He's riding a bike. So that disqualifies him from the Jeep from earlier. We don't know it yet, but later when Steve's riding with the officer, he mentions Ralph's wife was a nervous wreck until they got home. First of all, that motherfucker's married.
That's what I'm
There's
saying,
something for everyone.
Yeah, that made me feel bad about myself. I'm like, Ralph he can keep a woman? I can't. I'm not crazy at all. Ralph is legitimately crazy, and he looked like he didn't smell that great.
Oh, you know he didn't smell great, but you know she's been with him. She's been with him since he was perplexed, Ralph.
Yeah, it went from befuddled to perplexed, to crazy. Yeah.
Well,
and she stayed with him and worried about him when he wasn't at home.
Who worries about him? Who worries about Ralph? I don't know. She's probably
to.
crazier than him. She's probably crazier than him, though, Casey. You don't know. You can't know. But, you know, Brenda's the next to take the dive. And here's the part that really threw me. Like, Brenda's in bed ready to do some nighttime reading. Thank goodness for the subtitles, because I don't think I've ever heard this when I watched in the past. But a girl's voice yells, "Help me." And when Brenda goes outside, like, we can both hear it. I hear it, you know, plain as day. But I did not hear it in the bed. But Brenda finds herself in the middle of the archery range, and that's not a place where you want to be when there's a killer on the loose. So Bill and Alice... they, you know, set out to search for Brenda, who you can hear screaming in the distance, but they can't get far because nobody has a running vehicle around there. And just like that, the one who could be suspected all along, Steve, he's dead. As soon as he's back, you know, they're waiting on him at the Crystal Lake sign. So the suspects have all been vetted at this point, and we're 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts. And what's Alice do? The most sensible thing. She takes a fucking nap. A fucking nap. I guess the rain put her to sleep. It does me.
Well, at the time, she didn't know anybody was dead. She was, you know, but yeah, she did that bullshit half-hearted. You want me to go with you? No.
Quick to say okay.
You want me to go with you? Like, no, you can stay here. Yeah.
That's what they call an empty gesture. It's like, hey, you want me to help you pick that up? Nah, I got it. All right. You want me to go with you? Nah, it's okay. Okay, I'm going to take a nap. I guess to wake up, though, she starts making coffee, and there's a scene where, like, literally the whole process of coffee making is done right there in this one uncut scene. But this is where shit hits the fan. Like, Alice is out looking for Bill, and she finds him hanging on a door by some arrows, stuck in him like he's a pincushion. You know, Brenda's body comes flying through the window, and shit is just not good until help finally arrives in the form of a new character named Mrs. Voorhees. So we see a Jeep in the dark of night, fucking Jeep. So you gotta know if you're watching. So
you gotta know if you're an adult. Like I said.
Yeah.
As a kid, I'm not putting 2 and 2 together. I was like, okay. And I'll say this, and this says something about the generation. No way when that movie started would I believe that a woman could do all that killing. That's how, you know, and they knew that. That was a smart play.
Not in 1983, you're not thinking that.
Yeah, you think of a killer, it's this guy. You know what? Charles Manson, this and that, Ted Bundy, it's a guy. Guys do all the killing. Guys are the serial killers. So that was a nice twist. That all right. Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean,
maybe the fact that it was such a twist is what hooked me. I don't know. But I mean, really what hooked me was part 2. But this one, I went back and I was not disappointed at all. But we see a clean-cut mom, a straight-laced mom like June Cleaver, Doris Day type actress. And, you know, she's the knife-wielding, kill her.
Yeah.
But I got this teed up, so let's go ahead and listen to this iconic scene.
Oh, my Lord. So young, so pretty. Oh, what monster could have done this? Bill's out there. Oh, this place. Steve should never have opened this place again. There's been too much trouble here. Did you know that a young boy drowned the year before those 2 others were killed? The counselors weren't paying any attention. They were making love while that young boy drowned. His name was Jason. I was working the day that it happened, preparing meals. Here, I was the cook. Jason should have been watched every minute. He wasn't a very good swimmer. We can go now, dear.
I think we should wait for Mr. Christie.
Oh, that's not necessary.
I don't understand.
I am Jason. I am. You see, Jason was my son, and today is his birthday.
Where's Mr. Christie?
Oh, I couldn't let them open this place again. Could I? Not after what happened. Oh, my sweet, innocent Jason. My only child. Jason. You let him drown. You never paid any attention. Look what you did to him. Look what you did to him.
Betsy Palmer, y'all. Stage actress who was a squeaky clean performer, kind of, again, the Doris Day type. And here she is in this dirty, grimy, low-budget film that she took on because she needed a new car. Legit. Her Mercedes crapped out on her. She wanted to buy this other car. And somebody called her with the script. She read it and said, this script sucks, but it's going to get me this new car. So she took it.
No, and she did the most with it. She did the most with it. Like like I said, the voice. You don't. That wasn't in the script. It may be in the script to talk like a kid, but when she did it, oh mommy, I was like,
oh man,
shit,
you know what?
shit.
And I got a few thoughts on that. It's her son who drowned back in '57, leading her, Pamela Voorhees, to take revenge on some carefree and careless, in her eyes, counselors in '58. She's the reason Camp Crystal Lake is, known as Camp Blood. And after the last counselor who sought to reopen the camp in this film's present day, guys, what do you make of Betsy Palmer here?
I mean, to me, she's iconic in this role.
Fucking iconic, Rick.
Because the first time I saw this, I didn't know it was her. And that twist, I was like, holy shit, that's awesome.
Oh, so you did see this with fresh eyes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I did not see it coming. I saw it when I was 10 years old.
So this was the first one you saw. You didn't see any of the part 2 and up, the Jason movies, before you saw this one.
I saw the original.
You lucky bastard.
I know.
Because now you can recall that memory.
Yeah.
You're always going to be able to recall that memory.
Yeah, think about this, Billy. Like the next day at school, this is Halloween. The next day at school, all the kids were talking about Friday the 13th without mentioning Jason. Probably the only time in history that's all we talked about. Did you see it? Did you watch it? That movie was crazy, and Jason had nothing to do with it.
Except for his little cameo at the end.
Well, yeah. But then it was like the kid. It wasn't. Remember?
Yeah, it was just like, that was a crazy ending where this little hairless, deformed kid.
It wasn't like Jason was a brand at the time.
No, they probably called him the kid.
Out of the water. Yeah, I know I did. I wouldn't have remembered that name the next day.
Damn.
Yeah, well, I wasn't that bright though. I established that. Yeah.
Well, I got to talk about seeing like this scene, like the chase scene at the beginning of part 2. Okay, so what a lot of the Friday the 13th we're going to do, following this one, is the first few minutes of the next movie will be the ending of the previous movie. So when you watch part 2, you're going to see from the moment Pamela arrives to the moment she's killed, and then part 2 proceed. Okay, there's a scene where it's kind of like a flashback, or at least it looked like a flashback to me. You see only like from the mouth down, and it's saying, "Kill her, mommy. Kill her. She can't hide. There's no place to hide." Well, me watching part 2 first, I'm thinking, oh, that's Jason telling his mother to kill this woman. But when I watch part 1, no, not at all. Pamela's having this Norman Bates type thing going on where she is, playing the part of Jason. She's verbally saying the word. This isn't just somebody in her head, which it is somebody in her head talking to her, but she's living it out. And that's something that a lot of people miss, especially if they only watch Friday the 13th for Jason and never backtrack to the original. She was, she put forth a performance that with just one role, she's in the horror movie elite. She'll never be taken out of that. She is horror movie elite. Casey, you agree?
Sorry, I was on mute. I do agree with that. And I have a question to pose.
Pose it.
So I keep seeing, I will. I keep seeing mostly on Twitter, memes, and it'll say, I've seen 2 now, and they say my favorite genre of horror movie is good for her. And it shows movies like, I don't know, Gone Girl, Jennifer's Body, Carrie, stuff like that, like female-driven revenge movies. Mm-hmm. Does this classify as a good for her movie?
I'll say no, because none of the people involved had anything to do with what happened to her kid.
Okay.
It wasn't payback. Like the two counselors who she killed. Here's the thing though. So are we saying that she killed the first 2, but then that's it? She didn't kill anybody else?
Oh, the first 2 back in 58?
Yeah, she was young in 58 though. Later on, she's like, you know what? Kill everybody. That's why
it ain't out of my system.
Yeah. They were singing a song. I didn't want to interrupt because I was young. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe in myself as a murderer, but now I know.
Well, it could have been one of those things where, like, listen, I'm going to send a message by killing 2 people, and, like, I'm going to leave it alone after that. And then if they try...
I'll poison the water a couple years later, and then that should be enough.
Yeah. But Christy wants to come back and reopen it permanently. Nah, fam, it's time to... It's time to take him to town now.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about the final few seconds here. Just as in the initial kill, of the 2 teenagers, back in 58, that slow motion shot again. Alice picks up the machete after being chased all over creation. Alice picks up the machete and slow motion just stumbles over to Betsy Palmer, to Pamela Voorhees, and takes her head off with one shot. Probably the most iconic kill of this movie, ending it, or at least ending the horror that she knew on that night. So we move forward though into this lake scene. This was not even in the script for most of the actors when they auditioned. When this nightmare's over, we have a scene that, well, it's not really clear if it's a dream in her head or a reality, but Alice is on the lake in a canoe. The water's motionless. We hear this beautiful piano piece. The cops have shown up and she's safe. And suddenly out of the water comes your boy, this filthy, disfigured boy, to take Alice from behind and pull her underneath the water.
Dude, scared the shit out of me when I saw it the first time.
If I had a time machine, I would go back just to hear what sound I made.
For real.
I know. Even, like when I watched it Sunday, when I knew it was coming, I could feel like, I can't imagine. I know I squealed. I know there's no way I didn't scream or jump. There was just, I wish, if there was one thing I wish there was a video of my reaction to that the first time I saw it. Because I must have screamed and jumped up, and there's no way. I call me like, that's crazy. No,
you may not even have made a sound. You may not have even made a sound. Like a color may have just like jumped out of your mouth. Like it just something that's not even natural.
Whatever sound I made, I disappointed my granddaddy. I know
he was disappointed before that. You're too big to be scared.
Too big to be squealing like that. Too big to be screaming like that, boy.
Again, not too old.
That scared. That was. I can't think of another scene that scared me like the end of Carrie, which is the same kind of vibe.
Which is what that scene was brought in for.
Yeah, like that's the that last thing when you think it's over and then bam, like that got me. That was one of the scariest scenes I think I've ever seen.
But
they kind of repeat that. Go ahead.
Carrie is such a good comparison because when I was reading about this movie and looking into this movie, Sean Cunningham said that he wanted something that was more to it, some kind of ending scare. And with Carrie just having come out 4 years before this, I think maybe, they said they wanted to do something at the end that kept you captivated and kept you scared like Carrie did.
Man, that's the blueprint.
They were right on point. Cause, yeah. Cause you know what? I think that without that scene, maybe there is a part 2, and maybe there is everything after that, but we don't know. That scene, if you know, I'm picturing people walking out of the theater because I was too young, but I'm picturing people walking out of that theater saying, "Holy shit!" Like it's almost like that scene right there. It sends you out on a high note of fear, and you're like, you know what? And the next day you're telling people, "No, you got to go see this Friday the 13th, man. It's the scariest shit I've ever seen." Because that scene was so unexpected that I think it set the stage and the buzz when somebody said, "You know what? Producers want to make another one."
Now, like, I've seen people go out of, like, the oddest movies, like, clamoring for a sequel. I'm pretty sure somebody that I know walked out of, the end of Titanic and said, "Oh, there's going to be a part 2. There's going to be a part 2 of Titanic. I guarantee you." But this scene probably got people hyped for a part 2, even though it wasn't even in the question. And, like, even in the, it wasn't something they were planning on.
Right.
They didn't plan on this movie being successful.
No, it's one of those things where if it makes his money back, fine. Cause remember, there was no video. It was like, if it makes our money back, then it's good enough for us. Oh yeah, it's just one of those things where it just worked out. But yeah, that scene was huge.
Well, we're gonna leave you with the final words spoken from Friday the 13th, and this is just the scene that we're talking about, and going forward. But first, I want to get. Oh, by all means, JB.
Why is it called Friday the 13th?
Well, Sean S. Cunningham, who, directed this movie, he saw Halloween, and he said, okay, they've got to clamp on Halloween because, like, it's the perfect name of a movie. Like, now, every Halloween can be celebrated by watching Halloween. And he said, well, I think I could make a movie with Friday the 13th. He saw the name of the TV show. The TV show had nothing to do with the movies, obviously. But he said, that is an excellent name. He just liked the name Friday the 13th as a, am I looking for counterpart? Like maybe an antithesis to Halloween. So they may have Halloween, which comes once a year, but we're going to have Friday the 13th, which comes every so often. And it's still just like this uber crazy name, like super eerie, but now it's his. And that's just why he went with it. Completely new story, nothing to do with the TV show.
So did it happen on Friday the 13th?
So
yeah,
I don't.
I think they mentioned it somewhere.
And like it's Jason's birthday.
Yeah, it says June 13th when we open and get into things.
Correct. And it is also Jason's birthday. But I think they made it that way because of the name. They didn't like take the name because that's the date they chose. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I wonder culturally, and I guess I have to ask somebody older than me. I wonder culturally if people treated Friday the 13th the way we do now, like in 1978, 79. I'm pretty sure that there are pockets of people that's like, oh, it's a bad luck day. But I think within 5 years, Friday the 13th became, if you were in school, Friday the 13th, everybody had this, it was like the full moon. But yeah. I wonder if the movie had a bigger effect on how it impacted, society at large. It had to put like this. It had to be good for sales.
Oh, it had to be great for sales, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, this movie doesn't disappoint. It's not just a clever name. Like a rose by any other name smells whatever. This movie's fucking scary. Call it Friday the 13th or call it Valentine's Day. It's fucking scary, and it stands up.
Scary, Bill.
What'd you say, James?
You know what else is scary?
Oh God, let's hear it.
Bigfoot.
James.
He's real.
James, I know you've been holding on to your little PSA all day. I don't want to hear another goddamn word about Bigfoot.
Is it too late to say Bigfoot is real?
It's never too late,
podcast
James, this is your podcast, man. You bring it up whenever you want to.
Well, if you're listening right now, look out the window.
Now, here's the one last thing I'll say that I did notice, that Friday the 13th, because, the genre hadn't really been created yet, this was before they had one black cast member who would get killed right away.
Oh,
this
yeah.
was before that started happening. I remember that. I was like, you know what, this is kind of nice. It wasn't that one black person who would say something like, man, y'all are crazy. I ain't scared of nobody. And then they get killed up 18 kinds of ways. So that was nice.
I don't think...
In 5 years, you couldn't have a movie without that one character who's like, yeah, they're gonna get killed fuck up very quickly.
I don't think there was a black person in a Friday the 13th until part 5. I could be wrong. I may be spacing on part 4, but I think it's the guy with the Jerry curl in part 5 who, Reckless was his little brother. You know, he's in the outhouse and ooh, baby, ooh, baby. You remember that? I'm gonna get
Reggie,
you, bitch.
Reggie's brother.
Reggie's brother. I can't remember Reggie's brother's name, but man, he's like, that's my favorite couple in all of the movies. Because they just like, you know, they fuck with each other like that. But, guys, let me get your final thoughts on this masterpiece of a film. JB, get it started.
This movie was terrible.
James, I'm tired of your negativity. I know you loved it.
It scared me then, and it scares me now. I can't even go out in the woods.
James, it's too hot for all that shit anyway. Rick, give us your thoughts.
I mean, to me, it's definitely a classic slasher. I would say top 10 for sure.
You think this individual one is a top 10?
Yes, because it opened up so much to everything else after it.
Yeah, building off of Halloween, this one was the perfect, I guess, successor. I don't want to call it a successor because it didn't really take over anything, but it really gave us an alternative. Like, if I'm not really digging, you know, Dr. Loomis and Michael Myers, man, I'm always going to have, you know, Friday the 13th. Even Joe Frazier had a left hook. His right hook didn't get all the knockout. So, Casey?
I will say that part 2 is probably an all-time for me. This one I really enjoy, and I think it's a really fun, great movie, and obviously it spawned, I think, one of the most successful horror franchises of all time. I want to say it's the most, if you don't count Freddy versus Jason. I want to say I read that somewhere. I might be wrong, though. But it's important for a reason, obviously. They're very fun movies. I do have a question, though, and Billy, I feel like you'd be the one to know. How many Jason movies are there? Because it's
12.
Yeah, pretty sure there are 12. I think I remember the 13th one being the one that they scrapped because of the legal battle, which I'm not
still
like...
going on.
I think it's over now. At least that's something that I read, and I also read that Corey Feldman was kind of down to be, to reprise his role as Tommy Jarvis, and I would be 1,000% down with that. But, I mean, if we talk about 1 through 8, and then we've got Jason Goes to Hell, and then you'll want to count Jason X, and then Freddy versus Jason, and then you've got that 2008 remake or reboot.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was nothing beyond that. So yeah, that's number 12. Hoping
I will
for
say
number 13.
I saw Jason Takes Manhattan in Times Square opening weekend. I was 21, and that was an experience. And I will say that was an experience because that's the only movie I ever saw at a theater. The only Friday the 13th was in Manhattan, and we laughed. That one was campy, but it was an experience.
It was a little silly, but man, don't tell me you didn't get goosebumps when fucking Julius is rocking his body up on that rooftop.
Yeah,
and then he punches himself out. But man, Julius was throwing hands, and nobody had ever done that with Jason before.
That's true. Yeah.
Nobody had ever stood up and just like squared up with Jason. And man, he took him to town until until Jason put that rope-a-dope on him and showed him why he's the greatest. Well, Alexander, give me your final thoughts on Friday the 13th.
All right, here's my final thought. And one, I'm really glad that I got to watch this again because one, like I said, like for me, that was my introduction. But I wasn't really I wasn't fanatical about horror. But that movie, the first Nightmare on Elm Street, like I remember those movies that scared Halloween. I remember how it scared the shit out of me. It's been a while since something scared me. Like there are movies now that have frightening scenes. Now everything is like the camera with all of a sudden somebody's on the ceiling and they just drop down on you. Of course that's creepy. But this one it scared me and I was glad because it took me back. It took me back. I remembered a lot of stuff from that time that I'd forgotten about. I forgot about my grandfather saying I was too big to be scared. I forgot about when I had to go run to the car for the cigarettes. I forgot how the next day we were all talking about it because it was this thing that we all saw collectively, and it was like, okay, now there's this new thing. There's this new kind of scary movie that's our generation, and then from there all the way through high school and forward, like we knew about it. It's like we were on the ground floor. So it was cool, and I was so I liked it to the point, and now listen, you guys talk about the second one. I want to watch it. I want to watch the second one because now I want to see the introduction to Jason because it just took me back. So it was really cool. So Sunday I started watching it like, let me watch this so I'm up to date. But halfway through I was enjoying it. I was laughing, but I was still like, all right, let's go. Let's see what happens here. But so yeah, I think it's on the Mount Rushmore only because if not for Friday the 13th, how many of your favorite franchises would never happen? It had a bigger impact. It had a bigger impact than Halloween.
You think so?
Because the sequels were better.
Well, it's almost like people always say that. I guess to put it in perspective, I listen to some history podcasts, and one that I listened to is by a guy named Dan Carlin, and he argued that the most important person that shaped the modern world in history was a guy that a lot of people don't know named Gavrilo Princip. And the reason he is so important is because he's the reason there was a World War II. And why? Because he was the reason there was a World War I. Well, Halloween was probably World War I. Maybe Friday the 13th was World War II. And to me, 2 was always a little more interesting. So I'm a big fan of Friday the 13th. I will always be a fan of Friday the 13th. So I'm going to go ahead and give this thing a send home for my man, my mellow, James Alexander, for Final Girl Casey, for the Memphis Menace Rick, for the Godfather of Droll James. I am Billy Graves. This was the Slashers and Screamers podcast. Wait a minute. What am I doing, guys? We didn't even say what we're going to watch next week. Rick, don't sit on that shit. You rat-faced bastard.
All right.
What are we watching next week, Rick?
We're doing another slasher film. Came out in 1981. Ooh. It's called Madman.
Madman?
Yes.
Where are we going to find Madman?
It is on Tubi. It is on Pluto TV. It is on Amazon Prime.
You said Tubi? I'm in.
Yeah.
Looking for Madman, 1981. Guys, you heard him. Listen, watch Madman. We're going to talk about it next week. Join us on the Slashers and Screamers podcast, and we will catch you down the road.
10 milligrams Valium. It's all right now, Alice. It's all over. Thing's over.
Roll over.
Okay. Your folks are on the way up.
Is anyone else alive? Are they all dead?
Yes, ma'am. 2 of my men pulled you out of the lake. We thought you were dead, too. Do you remember very much?
The boy. Is he dead, too?
Who?
The boy, Jason.
Jason?
In the lake. The one who attacked me. The one who pulled me underneath the water.
Ma'am, we didn't find any boy.
But then he's still there.